go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jordan Weaver, and on behalf of the entire BMA leadership team, I'd like to welcome you all to our Seeding Your Future panel discussion. Speakers I'm very excited to introduce Ms. Monica Wheat, John Odom Brown, and Dr. Patrick Griffith. So Ms. Monica is a strategist, educator, investor, and venture developer. Monica is a founder and executive director of Venture Catalyst, a nonprofit venture and ecosystem development group focused on investor and founder education, an innovation hub, and large-scale entrepreneurial initiatives for over 40,000 attendees. She is the Techstars Startup Programs lead, leading programs nationwide and founding co-director of Startup Boost, a global pre-accelerator. She served as a consultant for Backstage Capital, co-producing their multi-city live investment tour, and was the managing director of the Backstage Capital Detroit Accelerator, a four-city global tech accelerator investing 3 months and $100,000 each in scaling startups for underrepresented founders. She is a global speaker, judge, and consultant. Past clients have included Fortune 10 corporations, nonprofits, school districts, tech accelerators, venture funds, and startups. She regularly speaks and consults at corporations and conferences on topics of emerging ecosystems, venture capital, digital innovation, and women in technology. Her work has been found and or featured in Crain's, Huffington Post, Black Enterprise, and Forbes. So thank you so much, Ms. Monica, for joining us this evening. Next, I will introduce our second speaker for tonight, Mr. John Odom Brown. John Odom Brown is an entrepreneur in residence here at UC Irvine under the Blackstone Launchpad and Techstars grant. Mr. Odom Brown currently holds the UC Irvine Entrepreneur Center manager position. His job is to build the student entrepreneur ecosystem on campus while providing entrepreneurship resources, events, programs, and services to all students. Mr. Odom Brown is a 10-year United States Marine veteran with 2 combat tours to Afghanistan. As for his entrepreneur journey, Mr. Odom Brown is the founder of Global Outreach Team Relief, a sustainable social impact company, Rock the Base, a live entertainment touring company that caters specifically to the United States military. And lastly, he is the founder of Smartpreneur, an entrepreneurship development agency dedicated to helping Black founders develop the skills necessary to start, operate, grow, and scale their companies. John, we thank you for your service and appreciate your time with us tonight. And last but not least, we have Dr. Patrick Griffith. Dr. Patrick Griffith is currently the medical director of Adventist Medical Heart and Vascular Institute. Dr. Griffith received his undergraduate degree from Northwestern University, then proceeded to attend medical school at Washington University. He also received his general surgery training from Georgetown University, cardiac surgery and transplant training from UNC Chapel Hill, and also got his pediatric cardiac surgery training from Emory University. Patrick is also a fellow anteater that received his Executive Master of Business Administration here at Paul Mirage. Patrick has performed over 8,000 heart operations and over 4,000 lung procedures. Patrick also started and directed 2 new heart and lung programs. Patrick's background and training is in cardiovascular medicine, but since his completion of his executive MBA, Patrick is also very knowledgeable and experienced in the business and startup industry. Patrick's recent focus over the past several years is startup companies with attention on medical devices and stem cell research for heart failure. We thank you so much for being a part of this panel. And so I know we only have about an hour, so I want to dive deep into the discussion. So first, if we can kind of just have each of you just tell us more about the work that you're doing in the entrepreneurial and startup industry and why this topic of funding and investing in Black entrepreneurs is important to you. Monica, we'll start with you.
Sure. Thank you again for having me. I'm definitely glad to be joining the panel tonight. I love this space. I stumbled into this space. I started out being a traditional engineer. I attended the University of Michigan. Thought I was going to be a corporate person and was for about 10, 15 years. But one of my roles was in corporate engineering and really focusing on helping companies figure out how they could partner with GM, Ford, all these different entities that I was working with, whether that was on the brand side, whether that was on the startup side, just trying to figure out how can they integrate into what we're doing as a very large multinational global enterprises. And I just got hooked. For me, the perspective really came when I was overseas working for GM and at GM Shanghai, and I saw what I thought was people having more fun than me at their job, and I said I want to do that. And so at a downturn, I had several ups and downs with the automotive industry, but at a downturn, I had an opportunity to jump ship and come to this side of the world, and I've been over here ever since. I love this side of the world. You couldn't have told me that I was going to be here as a career path. But the same as when I started in engineering, and the same as when I started, rising through the corporate ranks and kind of fighting your way to kind of get people to recognize your work and kind of fighting to figure out like where you stand and how to be competitive. I was often the only person in the room that was a person of color and or a woman. And that didn't change at all. It actually became even more so the case when I started doing more things on the tech startup side. Initially, I was still working in corporate while I was doing this work. So we were talking a little bit earlier pre-show about Techstars and things like that. I started with Techstars doing, startup weekends and their weekend events and things like that, and graduated to much larger events and multi-city tours. We most recently just did a HBCU VC tour across several campuses. I do a lot of multi-city tours, lots of broader plays, and have done tons of work for them both here and overseas, because this is a space that is not diversified. This is a space that is built on relationships, that is built on access, and there isn't a lot of access for people that look like me. And to be honest, when I first started this piece, this part of my career, I did the thing they tell you to do. I reached out to people who were veterans in the industry, said, hey, I really think I want to be in the VC space. I want to jump ship. And I was told point blank to my face that was not going to happen because VCs didn't look like me. And I will always remember that. And this is from well-meaning people who, were just trying to help me in my career, but were just telling me that it's a very small group. It's very insular. And they at this time, this is about 10 years ago, but they follow a pattern, and I didn't fit the pattern. So it was going to be a very uphill battle for me to be a part of it. Those initial things that I was doing when I was in corporate, in Detroit, my background, my headquarters and my home is in Detroit. Those initial moves that I was making were in an undeveloped market that didn't have the same space as California or some of the coastal cities, didn't have the same movement, didn't have the same awareness of what entrepreneurship and angel investing and the VC space was about. So that part was also a struggle. So as I'm trying to build my own career, I'm realizing that we just didn't have the ecosystem we didn't have the as robust of ecosystem to support that work. And again, mind you, this was about 10 years ago. And that was also the space where I realized that Detroit, being a majority minority city, the largest majority minority city in the country, we also had that to challenge as well, because again, we did not fit the pattern. We didn't fit the pattern of where they thought they were going to find ideas. We didn't fit the pattern of where they thought innovation could thrive. And we didn't fit the pattern of where they were going to find talent to be in the midst of we were bringing angel workshops, and we're trying to get high net worth people to invest, and all these different things. We just didn't fit those initial patterns. And again, this is before the movement that is now across the country, where they're saying, not just the coasts, there are all these other markets that have tons of talent, tons of deal flow, all that kind of stuff. So for me, it just became a mission, and something that I'm super, super passionate about, is that I see entrepreneurship and venture as a path to economic empowerment. And I knew that having robust ecosystems that worked well were things that were going to make it easier for people who looked like me to have a chance and to not be told that they didn't fit the pattern. So the bulk of the work that I do is actually mainstream, but I do a ton of work on the D&I side. And every program that I do that is a mainstream program, mainstream being just open to everyone. It's one of the things that I'm super proud of, that I make paths and make ways for underrepresented, or as we say in backstage, the underestimated founders have a chance to not only compete and have access, but to thrive. So for me, it's been a fun journey. Never thought I would be in this career path, but looking forward to where we're at now, which is a completely 180 turn on where the industry was when I first started. The way that people just regard different markets, the work that I do here versus different cities, It's just a different space and a place, and there's so much opportunity. And so giving a chance to be a part of something like this, that gives people understanding of where to go, where to start, and what their path is through the broader ecosystem, whether that's focused on a particular city or a broader national ecosystem. Those are things that I think I do well, and that I'm really passionate about continuing to do. So again, glad to be here, and definitely looking forward to questions and whatever we can do to help for progress.
Thank you so much. John, do you want to go ahead and add to that?
Yeah, thanks for that, Monica, because you kind of brought me back to some of the reasons why I got started, and a lot of it had to do with being underestimated. My upbringing was pretty rough. I grew up in the foster care system for about 16 years of my life. So coming from that, you are definitely the 0.01% in your community at all points and times. And through all the grace of God and all the process of my life, I was able to position myself to join the military as my first career. And while I was in the military, this is where I got my first stint of entrepreneurship, because if you know anything about standards and processes, you don't want to go against the grain in the military, because it's just do black and white. But I have a creative mindset at all times, and there was something wrong with the systems that they gave to me and asked me to apply myself to my job. And I looked at these systems and I said, something needs to change. So I started changing the systems that fit around me. Now, granted, not from an entrepreneurship perspective, I just started doing that just to make my life easier, and also make it easier for people who worked under me. And because of that, when I went to deploy in Afghanistan, I ended up creating a system called the Battle Force Tracker. And it was literally designed just to account for personnel, equipment, money, any type of in and outbound personnel that come in and out of your area of operation. And I created that just to make it easier for my commander to report, because my report ended up going to him, and that report goes to the President of the United States, so that they know what's happening in your area of operation and your area of deployment. And come to find out, that was a very valuable program that I created. And they ended up getting passed off to the Army, ended up getting passed off to the Navy after that. And then I ended up getting an award. Now, granted, when they gave me the award, they said, well, we're giving you this award, but you cannot keep the program that you just created. And it was a heartbreaking moment for me for a moment. It said, and I asked the question, I asked why, and they told me straight out, you signed a contract, and anything that you create under intellectual property while under this contract belongs to the United States military. And it was just a change in, it was a change in mind shift almost instantaneously, that something that I created of value was taken from me, and I never wanted that to happen again. And someone, one of the commanders there told me, hey, you should really think about pursuing entrepreneurship. At that point in time, I had no idea what entrepreneurship was. And that was back in 2010. And I was up for a career. I was up to get promoted, but I decided to get out. I decided to bet on myself and try to do this again. I felt this energy when I created something. I felt like it was taken from me. I want to figure out how to do this again and never let it happen again. So I got it, and I pursued entrepreneurship straight on. So I went out and got a master's degree in innovation entrepreneurship from Full Sail University in Florida, just to understand what entrepreneurship was all about. And what I found out, it's systems. What I found out, it's organization, it's management, it's the relationships, it's things that I already know how to do, and I know how to do very well. And it just fit everything that I wanted to do so easy. So because of that, I ended up creating my first company, Rock the Base, which was a pretty high growth company for a first startup. And basically, I take billboard recording artists to military installations across the country to do large scale shows. Well, we don't compete with like Live Nation or AEG because we don't use any of their venues. Well, that was a big thing that we just felt was a unique niche, but actually came to be where we had a very good market share. I had no knowledge what high growth was. I had no knowledge what investments was, but through the process of building this company, I learned so much so fast, and I was moving at a quick pace. And I felt, well, some of my other veteran friends are asking me, hey, help me out, build my company, help me do this. And I'm like, dude, I want to help you. And I'm helping and I'm helping. And I realized, well, man, they lack so much knowledge and I lack so much knowledge. Not only do I want to run this company, but I actually want to run it and make it sustainable so it can run itself. And then I actually really want to go learn more about how to help other entrepreneurs build their businesses. I think that's what I love the most. And I ended up falling into that process. It just became where I love the idea of building something from scratch, seeing it grow. And because I was able to do that with my own business, I thought I could actually help more people. So I ended up creating a company to allow me to do that. And because of that, I was able to get this job here at UCI as an entrepreneur in residence to take my processes and systems that I built to build high growth companies and actually teach others how to do the same thing. So for me in this area, I really look at it as I want to help people with the knowledge, understand the process to getting there the right way. The process of venture capital is not the same process to angel funding. It's a completely different thing. How do I help you better build? And I think for Monica being involved in the actual backstage capital and being involved in the money side of things, where mine is making sure that you do everything you need to do to get that money and actually know what to do with it when you do get it. So I think that's where I want to leave it because I know we're gonna have a lot of more conversation later.
All right, Patrick, you're muted.
Oh, there we go. Let me start off. Thank you. I can already say after hearing the last two that I'm the novice in the group. So I'll say that right off the bat. But let me just start off with a quick little share my screen here just a second. Okay. So I certainly believe that the heading of this, Seeding Your Future, is extremely important because, you know, the way I think of it is truly like we have planted a seed and that's what we're all trying to do. We're starting with something that you really don't know what the potential is going to be, but the hope is that you take care of it just like a seed that is going to grow, you water it, and you actually come out with something that is going to be major for all of us. I feel honestly that's what when I went into medicine, that's what I wanted. I had a certain pattern that I wanted to follow. I put this quote by William James. Maybe not many of you know him, but he's a physician from about 150 years ago. But I take this with me all the time, and I think that I always like to share it with people that when we become responsible for our own values, we no longer have to struggle to make the world conform to our needs. Rather, we adapt to our own values to fit the circumstances that confront us in the world. And I look at that mainly from the standpoint, even today, we can see from the political arena and all of this, what is going on, it seems to always turn that someone is doing something. And this is where I say, I take full responsibility that I'm going to make sure that I and others like me are able to make it. So I say that definitely you are responsible and in control of your future. You have to let go of the fear and replace it with a burning desire and belief. So I know a number of people out there are saying, well, wait a minute, how do you do that? And I'm going to mention some things that I think, you know, you probably don't expect. But I think it gets back to, well, what is the seed that we're talking about? Because a lot of people, and again, I can already see that my panelists are high level and they would already outshine me in terms of starting certain businesses. But I say that no matter what you do, I don't care what it is, just like me starting off in medicine, it goes internal to external. You have to develop yourself first. And I say the first thing you have to do, and I know it may sound like, well, wait a minute, this is off point. It's not. You have to make sure you eat appropriately, exercise, sleep, and meditate. Once you start doing those things, you start to see 1, 2, 3% changes in your life daily. You have to become very aware and in tune with what you love and your daily habits, because what you're doing right now, and all of us have to think about that, what we're doing right now, is it going to take us to where we want to go and who we want to be? And that is really the key to moving forward, as well as to understand what you want and then strengthen it with an unwavering belief. I know that when I decided to become a physician, I never had a doubt that was what was going to happen. But just like Monica and all the others have said, you have people who come into your life who then start to say to you, I don't think you can do it. There's no one here like you that can do it. So in the business side of it, we say that, yes, extremely important. Networking with similar individuals, groups, and organizations. That is one way, also level to get you there. Make strategies that align with your goals and vision, and then outline and implement those steps to arrive at your next destination. The final message that I have here is one that, is extremely important, no matter what you're faced with, is actually never to give up. It's easy to give up if you haven't done those first steps where internally you made sure that you have an extremely strong foundation. And that is really the key to it. Now, let me just get to, in terms of why is it that, I do this. I mean, it's very similar to what everyone else has said. It's a matter of that, no matter what level I've gone to, I always have met obstacles. And at this point, after 40 years, and this isn't about hubris or anything like that, I went back to business school to really understand the business of medicine. And what it transpired to was that all of a sudden I started meeting different people in various areas, that I found out that the people in the business world who wanted to do startups in hearts didn't have all the real clinical information. So now fast forward later, what has happened for me is that I personally am more of an angel investor. The minimum investment I make is about $25,000. The most I've invested in a company usually is $1.5 to $2 million. Right now, as of this year, there's probably about 6 or 7 companies that potentially may go public or acquired. So my knowledge base actually stems from that and understanding that. And I want to make sure to try to share that with people, that really it doesn't matter truly what your background is. What really matters is how you continue to make the steps and progress wherever you are. Because once you do that, you've now planted that seed and that foundation to continue to do anything that you really want. We just know that it does take those 10,000 hours, as Malcolm Gladwell said. But again, that's something that we can actually do together. So I really look forward to any questions or discussion. Like I said, I don't really have the background that others do, but getting to that point is the last 6-7 years I've been engaged with the business of startups.
That's great. Thank you all for sharing. I do have some individual questions for you all. And if you guys have any additional input, definitely feel free to chime in. So John, I want to start with you. I know you help various students at UC Irvine to develop their business concepts in your role as an entrepreneur center manager. And you've helped me a lot with just strategizing and conceptualizing my idea and ensuring that I'm thinking bigger and not limiting to my consumer reach. So I recently heard in an interview with Master P that we should buy Black and sell to anybody. And I want to hear your thoughts on just how entrepreneurs in our community can strategize their ideas to ensure that they are thinking bigger and getting as much of their share of the market as possible. You're muted.
This Zoom thing is gonna get all of us, man. Monica, you next, all right? So no, you're absolutely right. And I think it falls back to what I was saying earlier about how I got started. And let me just give you a quick preface on this. Like when I created the company, Rock the Bases, a live entertainment touring company, that industry, there's 67,000 other businesses in there. If you, Jordan or Patrick or Monica wanted to create a live entertainment touring company, you can do so right now. There's nothing stopping you. You have access to the same things I did. The difference is I saw that the market share leader, I was going after them from day one. That was my whole intention, was to think as big as they do. Why? Because if they can make everyone happy in those moments, and they do it and they put such money behind it and personnel behind it and resources behind it, I want that to happen for my military family, my military community. I want them to experience that exact same thing you can experience at a Staples Centers in their backyard, right? And we can do that. Why? Because our backyards in the military are pretty big, by the way. So it's cool that we could actually provide the exact same thing. And to go that far, and I wanted to think that far, I also had to be that entrepreneur that at that time, that even though I haven't done anything in my life as an entrepreneur at that time, I had to think like I was already there. I had to change my whole mindset. I had to shift this around because if I kept the same mindset as a military person getting out of the military to try and become an entrepreneur, it would have slowed me down because I was going to focus on perfectionism, processes and systems and things like that. So one thing that I want to put out there is for whenever you're trying to move forward into this entrepreneur journey, like you gotta change your mindset. You gotta get into a mindset of growth. You gotta get into a mindset of what do I want to do with this idea? Do I want to grow it to become a big, large entity, or do I really just want to have something to help me make $100,000 a year, protect my family? You got to be honest to yourself what it is you really want to do. And I think that was the first thing for me is that, yeah, I wanted to make money for my family, but in more reality, I wanted to try something that I've never tried before. I wanted to reach for the skies, and it allowed me to pursue something. So kind of answer the question a little bit, I think it really has to go back to, being honest to yourself first and foremost. And do you actually have the mindset to get there? Now, when we say mindset, I'm not talking about, a millionaire's mindset or a billionaire's mindset. Like this, all that to me is different. I think it's about challenging the status quo, but I think it's about also challenging yourself. All those experiences that you don't have the experience to be an entrepreneur yet. You're unfamiliar with the process. The unknown is there. Everything is unknown about what's going to happen tomorrow or in the future. Are you willing to actually go and do those things? Are you willing to put in the time? Are you willing to give it your attention? Are you willing to actually get the money that you need to pursue this idea? And more importantly, are you really actually take that risk? And so I kind of want to take it back to that, because if we don't have your mindset, like everything else we're going to talk about moving through the rest of this panel, I think it's not going to make sense to anyone. So for those who are in that state, then I'm not necessarily directly talking to you, but for those who are in the position of coming up with ideas right now and they want to pursue it, then I think it's going to start with your mindset. And that's kind of how I help the students in the very beginning. It kind of goes back real quick, Jordan. When you came in, you had a mindset of what you wanted to do. You already knew exactly what you've been doing. You know exactly what you wanted to do, but I knew I saw something else. I saw that you saw the big picture, but you weren't painting the picture. You weren't painting the steps, the things you needed to do. And that's where I want to be a vessel to make sure that if you want to be that high growth company, let's go after the goal, but you got to change certain things along the way.
That's great. Thank you, John. Would
Yeah.
anybody else like to add to that?
Well, certainly, I mean, I will. I agree, obviously, everything that he said. From the perspective, let's say for me as an investor, there's no question. I first start out, how is it someone presents to you with their passion, and that comes through, just like they said for you, it came through where your passion was. And then I always look, has there been any underlying proof of concept as far as what you've actually done with it, and then you move on and say, well, what is the actual market size that can be captured by this? And so that might be saying, how do you get it back into the black market and actually expand there? Because that's going to be, very important to do that. And what is the underlying uniqueness of this product? And that was the point that was kind of just being made. Where's the competitive advantage actually that this has over other types of products? And to me, it's also important who's on the team. Who else have you put together that is going to take this to the end goal?
That's good. Thank you for that. Oh, somebody else want to say anything? Oh, okay. All right. So my next question. So I know it's stated Black founders receive less than 1% of venture capital funds in America. Monica, I know you do a lot of work to help underrepresented founders have access to resources and funding opportunities to grow their companies. Can you guys hear me okay? I think it's kind of...
It was breaking up, but yeah.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry about that. All right, so I'll start over. So I know it's stated that Black founders receive less than 1% of venture capital funds in America. And Monica, I know that you do a lot of work to help underrepresented and underestimated founders to have access to resources and funding opportunities to grow their companies. So what would you say to an entrepreneur wanting to enter the space of technology and innovation to ensure that they set themselves up for success and become attractive to investors?
It's a good question. It's the first thing that people always ask, because they always wonder like how you get into that small number, because it is a very, very small number of people who get venture. But I think that's the first thing I always kind of pedal back a little bit and kind of give people a little bit more of landscape and say that less than 5% of companies in total actually use venture as a way to fund their businesses. So that's the first starting point, is like to be aware of that. And then knowing that of that of the folks who are in the midst of that 5%, less than 1% of them end up getting are Black and brown founders and end up getting venture capital. So it's a very, very small amount of people who use this to raise, but most people who are in the technology and innovation space, this is the preferred way. It's the way that you scale quickly. And I would say the biggest thing to understand is like, is venture capital for you? And I think Jean was talking about it a little bit before, is just really trying to understand is, are you trying to make a high growth, high scale business, or are you trying to make a lifestyle business? Like a lifestyle being like something that sets income and gives comfort, but is not meant to scale, to be a multi-million-dollar entity. If you're not looking for something that's going to grow very, very fast and be able to give very high returns to investors, be they angels or VCs or funds or whatever, then venture isn't for you. To make yourself more attractive, you first have to have your objectives aligned. You really have to know that I'm willing and wanting to grow my company in this way. This is the technique and the method. And I'm willing to make a partnership with an investor that could last, as they say, longer than most marriages. The investor partnership lasts longer than most marriages. It's on average of 10 years that you will be together with this person where they have an equity stake in your company. And so to make yourself more attractive to someone like that, you have to first have the mindset that this is how you plan to grow your company. This is the strategy and the setup that is that you are aligned with as the owner or the CEO, the ideation person, that you have that aligned. I think the next part then is understanding, I think a lot of folks, the mistake that they make twofold is that there obviously aren't a ton of Black and brown fund managers or VCs or funds. That's changing every day, but it's still not the majority at all. But those aren't the only folks that you should want to or should be going to look for funding. That's the other part. It's like you have to be able to be competitive across the entire venture capital market. You have to understand how to engage each and every one of the types of venture folks that are out there looking to invest. And so with that, you have to be able to speak the language. So I often tell folks is that there's no shame in asking questions, especially in this kind of newer market that had this been 10 years ago, if you didn't speak the lingo, you didn't get through the door. Now I think it's a little bit more open, where people are open to people asking questions, but you still have to speak the language. And you can come to events like this, or there's right now, Venture Deals is getting ready to start their spring term. Venture Deals is a free, I think it's like 9 weeks or 8 weeks or something, class where Techstars founder and folks are going to take you through how venture capital is set up. Just look up Venture Deals online. It's a weekly class. It's self-paced. You actually form a company together with a few folks, and you actually go through the paces of understanding how it's set up, term sheets, terminology, the landscape, all that kind of stuff. You have things like that. Then there's Venture Deals actually has a book. This is what I give to tons of my my founders and the folks who are in our cohorts and our accelerators. I give them the Venture Deals book. Obviously I give them, I work with, and I'm a big fan of Arlen Hamilton, who is the founder of Backstage Capital. She has a book out where she talks about her whole entire path of going from having no background in venture whatsoever to raising a venture fund from scratch, and building it to where it is, where several hundred investments at this point in Black and brown and female founders. And her book is called It's About Damn Time. And I think you have to educate yourself. So you want to be more attractive, you should be able to have a conversation with somebody who's in the venture space and be able to carry the basics of understanding when they ask you questions about how much are you raising? How much equity are you willing to give up? What kind of company are you looking to grow? How much traction do you have? What is your ARR? What is your MRR? Like, you have to know some of that terminology so that you understand how to carry the conversation. But I think the last part that a lot of folks, I get a ton of DMs into my LinkedIn, into my Facebook. And I always tell not so funny. It's funny now, but it wasn't funny then. I always tell the story of like this guy who hunted me down through my kid at her school. And I was just like, okay, so I didn't answer your email, so you sent a note through your kid from my kid. Like, that's not how you get people's attention. That's not going to do it. But the key is that the third part is really understanding what people are investing in. So you really have to understand whether they're an angel or whether they're a VC, what stage they're investing in, what the stage being like, are they super pre-seed, early idea, not that much traction, seed, traction, MVP, or you're able to scale or grow, like these different levels, and understand like what verticals they're investing in. You also want to understand in general, what type of company they're looking for. If they are a company that is looking for ex-corporate folks who have spun out on their own, they're only going to invest in ex-corporate folks who've spun out on their own. So you want to spend your time wisely on finding people who have, they call it the thesis. All investors have some sort of thesis. This is their set of rules on what they think is going to make a good investment. So you want to find out what the thesis of the folks, and most of their websites have it. You can find it on most like other websites where they're listing venture capital folks. You want to figure out what their focus is on how they're investing. So once you have those things, you know how a particular group is investing, you can speak the language, and you've educated yourself a bit. That's how you make yourself and you set yourself up to have a better chance. After that, it's really a numbers game. Once you have a subset of folks that are investing in your type of company at your stage, of a founder who's like you, who's got your background or whatever, and then you have enough information so that you can carry the conversation and not back yourself into a corner and sign term sheets and things that you don't understand. Once you have all those things, there's really just finding enough of the folks, getting enough meetings where you find a good connection. And that takes time. And this is a relationship and a numbers game at that point. It's really at that point, really getting in front of as many people as possible who fit those criteria, who could potentially be a good investor in your company. And so to make yourself more attractive is to kind of set yourself up on the path of having the right information and the right setup. But it's still, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's still a hard swing because it is a very minute amount of people who get that venture funding. And so there's pluses and minuses on those who would be a good fit. And I always tell everyone that venture capital is not for everyone. And it's also not the only way to grow a high scale, high growth company. It's the most, I would say the most expedient way. I would say the way that has proven for companies like Facebook and, Tinder and all the other bigger tech companies, it's a path that you can very clearly see the results of, but it's not for everyone. And there are other methods as well. But to be ready, you really have to understand your investor and build those relationships. You have to have your document set up, and going through programs like Techstars and Startup Boost and some of these different things. That's what they do. They help prepare you so that you can have these conversations better.
And I want to add real quickly on that, Monica, because one thing that I think is most important is to understand what kind of money is needed at the stage of your business. People are thinking about venture capital dollars and their idea stage, and you haven't made a dollar yet in your business. You don't know where the money is going to come from. How do you gain the confidence to know that you want to go down the VC lane? So one of the main things that we do at the UCI Entrepreneur Center is we really help you build your business to get you operating, get you going, so that you can actually learn how to run that company more so than try to push you to some type of funding solution. There's always going to be funding available, but if you're not ready for it, then you're not ready for it. It's very simple. If you can't present yourself, if you can't present what is needed to apply or to even introduce your business to someone, then you're not ready. And I think that's really what it's all about. Is sometimes those people who are getting venture funding, they're ready for it. They're ready. They've been on the grind. They've been doing what they're doing. And we can't believe that all businesses get funded just get funded because of the fact that the color of skin or whatever it may be. We know that there's a barrier for African American founders and women founders, LGBTQ founders. We know that there's a barrier, but you can't let that barrier stop you from getting your stuff together. At the end of the day, if you're not ready, you're not ready. And I think that's what we really want to do, is make sure that if I'm here as an African American founder and I'm trying to help anyone else who's African American, I want to make sure you're prepared. And so take that journey, like Monica said, Venture Deals, it's a free course. Like, if you've heard of it now, you have no excuse but to go try and learn the language. At the end of the day, if you walk away from that and you now know what a term sheet is, and that's the only thing you know, guess what? You know what a term sheet is at the end of the day, and you can go about it. So thanks for kind of going in depth, Monica, because you just kind of brought me back to the core thing of why sometimes it stops us from getting those deals, is because we don't know our stuff. And it's not because we don't want to know the knowledge. Sometimes we lack the culture, we lack the community, we lack the network. But you can't let those continue to be excuses any further. We just don't have an opportunity to do that.
All great points. Thank you guys for sharing. So Dr. Griffith, I do have a question for you. I know you've mentioned that you've helped a lot of founders in the medical industry with the development of devices and stem cell research. And you've also just mentioned that you've assisted different companies, or you're helping to help them to get acquired with larger companies. So can you just speak more about the exit part of a business and what those exits may look like and require, and also why it is important for an entrepreneur to have an exit strategy?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, it's extremely important. Right now, I'm thinking one company that I'm with, and I just talked to John about it because I'm part of an accelerator. But one of the businesses, just to give you an idea, I deal with heart failure quite a bit. And it's a very novel device right now, cardiorenal syndrome. So the kidneys fail, but everybody focuses on the heart. We have something that actually is going to help the kidneys, that's going to help the heart. So what we've done is actually expanded to knowing who exactly is going to want a product like this. I'm not know if you're familiar with some of these companies, but from Medtronic, Edwards, Baxter, there are a number of different companies. So I'm very focused on, or we are, I should say, on who actually would be interested in this device, who's in that space at the present time. And so we've actually contacted these people in different ways, the people who are have some interest. At the same time, right now, we also have engaged in investment, banking company. Now, that's something that really gets pretty high up there, I will say. And it's something that I'm learning myself, but we've engaged them because actually they know how to entertain and discuss with these different companies how to get to that next level. I'm trying to put it in terms of now where we are with this group that is talking, because honestly, the company that I'm talking about is going to be acquired for a very large sum. So there are multiple people engaged with this process besides just myself. I'll tell you that right now. Give me something a little more pointed so I can go directly to your question.
Yeah.
Jordan, can you hear me?
I think she froze a little bit real quick, Pat.
Guys, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I answer your question because I don't want to go off too far, because the companies that right now I'm engaged with are is pretty extensive. So
gotcha. So I guess what's that question as far as the exit strategies, and anybody can answer this question, but yeah. I feel like that's not really a topic that we hear a lot about. We hear about the investing aspect or just raising the funds, but I guess I think all investors are kind of looking for that exit strategy as far as, how they're going to get their money back or their ROI. So I guess if you can kind of just speak on just different exit strategies and just kind of what.
I'll let everybody else kind of touch on it, but yeah, in terms of just one company I'm engaged with, it's a matter of all we want to do is get proof of concept, and then we want a bigger company to buy this. We don't want anything, because now you've gone from an investment for the entire thing of $1 million to where it's going to cost you $30 or $60 million. And then there's other companies that say, no, I want this product. This is my baby. And so I'm going to take it all the way, and I don't care who else is there. And unfortunately, that's where VCs get involved. Yeah. I think VC money is extremely expensive. I never deal with VCs. I think, unfortunately, companies that I try to deal with, my own interest is that we retain the majority interest of the company. VCs are usually anywhere from 60 to 90% of the company, and they tell you which direction you're going to go, so you lose control. Another exit is a matter of just saying, I'm going to team up strategically with a partner who has the same goals and values as I do, and we're going to take this company to a certain point. Another company I'm on with, they actually have spinoffs. So Right now, we know that heart disease is a real problem, but a pharmaceutical company, the company I'm talking about is a 3D printing company. So we're able to print hearts 3D. What I didn't realize, and we found out, is pharmaceutical companies don't want to do animal research because it costs so much. If we can print a heart 3D, we can spin this off to them and they will pay a lot of money for that. So the point of that is that you can actually take your product and say, wait, is there any other value to someone else that actually I didn't realize? And that can be another one. So there are multiple levels to it, but I'll let everyone else.
No, Patrick, but no, you laid out the land right there though, because it really goes back to the first question of ownership. Like, what do you want with your business? Like, if you want to take it to the moon, then VC really that's going to be a far lane down, far way down the road, because your ownership, that personal perspective, that means you're going to do whatever it takes. You're going to put your money in it. You're going to make money. You're going to put it back in it, and you want to see it grow. Venture capital is to be able to fuel you. It's not necessarily for you to wait around. It's really there to help push you to move to the next stage of growth within your business. So for those who are seeking venture, you got to be willing to know, or willing to ask, how much do you want? How much control do you want? And how much control are you willing to give up? I mean, that's the simple question first and foremost. And once you're comfortable, then you'll kind of know where your funding lanes are, honestly. For us, we didn't want venture capital dollars. We understood that Live Nation has venture capital dollars backing them, but we knew all we needed was angel funding to do one thing. We needed to get one artist on our contract so we can go get sponsorship dollars. Sponsorship dollars pays for our basically 60% of our event. And as long as we were able to get the money to secure the artist, we were able to get $300,000 from a sponsor. That's a lot of money. That's an investment in all reality, but it's an investment that they're willing to pay for their brand, for what we're doing for them. And it's a strategic partnership. It's a brand partnership at that point. So depending on what kind of business you're in, honestly, there's so many different avenues. For me, entertainment, there's a ton of revenue opportunities that you can make from reproducing content years later, right? We can do so much with that. That's not the same for a medical device company, right? You may end up getting grants in the very beginning, get your research off the ground, and then eventually you might find that grant to actually, get it to market. And then maybe venture capital dollars are there for you, but you might go a whole totally different route in the very beginning. So I kind of want to always say, first and foremost, think about how much control you want of your business. If venture capital is what you're seeking, you got to build a business model for venture capital. If you're looking for angel funding, build it for angel funding. There are different strategies. If you're looking for grants, build it for grants, because there's a process to get a grant. And so that's where, myself, Bill Apply Innovation, our team here at UCI, we're here to help you throughout that whole journey so you make the right decision.
And I just wanted to add really quickly, I put into the chat, the first link is a little longer, but the second link is in there. It's 14 alternatives to venture capital. It's something that it's one of the info pieces that we put out. We do like 2-3 big events each year where we deep dive into each of these alternatives, because like Jean and Patrick are saying, it is exactly that. It's really understanding, like I said, is venture capital the method for you? And do you want a 10-year relationship with someone who's going to have, ideally, if you start on the path of venture, most people have to keep getting subsequent rounds, and that dilutes the earlier folks, and that dilutes the equity shares and things like that. And equity being how much you own of your company. And so when you have those methods, that might be perfectly fine, because some people are serial entrepreneurs and they're looking to build really fast and exit. Some people are looking for more of a longer term, more sustainable piece. I put in there in the chat SBIR grants. That's a very common way, especially in the sciences and technology and anything that is that has more focus on depth and longer term relationships and businesses that are meant to be more sustainable. There's a ton of grant competitions that are built like that. We have companies, our actually venture catalysts ourselves. We focus a lot. We have some venture that helps us, but really our model is we focus a lot on sponsorships. We have sponsorships and sponsorship partnerships with almost all the big tech companies, and that worked out better for us. You have to figure out what's going to work best for your business model, and really understand, again, like, what's your objective? Are you looking to grow this and keep this company and pass it on to your children? Are you looking to exit in 5 years? Are you looking to, hit a certain milestone and exit? All those kind of figure out will tell you what's a better fit for you as far as a funding model, and then can help you understand a better fit as far as an overall business model.
Yeah, I want to add one last point to that as well. And it's just, don't be in a rush. At the end of the day, spending time in your business and learning from it and seeing it go from zero to making $30,000 to making your first $100,000, being involved in that and seeing it, you might fall in love with it. You might fall in love with the whole process. And in the beginning, it seems sexy to go after funding, and it's exciting for sure when you can get that to happen, but you might just fall in love with the actual process of owning a company and actually working within that company for longer periods of time. And one thing that we got to remind ourselves in the Black community is about generational wealth. At the end of the day, venture capital dollars is not designed to help you generate generational wealth. Simple as that. It's just not. So if you're looking to bring that and pass that down to your family, really think about the process and what kind of funding you really is needed, what is really needed to help you sustain that goal.
One more to that. I think it may have been mentioned, but I didn't hear, but crowdfunding is another huge one. I didn't realize myself how big it was, but it's one that there's a company I know that they raised $4 million and only gave up 0.5% of the company. and so those are the type of things, they sell it at a low share price, but if you have 1 million shares and you're only selling 10 of them, whatever it is. But I know that this company did very well doing that, and it opened my eyes that there are other things than VC angel investors. No, we didn't touch on it, but obviously banks, but that's not a really great one, I don't think, just because the interest rates are too high. We talked about strategic partners, and Monica mentioned the SBA loan. So all of these are extremely important, as well as family and friends and things of that nature. It may not be as much money, but it gets you to that point where you're holding on to your passion and your goals while you develop yourself. And Jean brought up the fact that he went out and got this artist. To me, what he told us just then was that I just showed you proof of concept of what I'm doing. And he's showing passion, proof of concept, and let me show you my market. I mean, he is defining the business rules and then bringing it out there. And all of a sudden, now you got other people say, I can see it now. So that's what you really want to do, is provide that vision where anyone who has that kind of interest can see it. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much for just the entire discussion and just answering the questions. The BMA Association, Black Management Association, is doing a spring conference May 1st. If you guys enjoyed this conversation, I'm sure you guys will definitely be in for a treat for the conference. Just more conversations on venture capital, just advancing with your MBA, and just how to get into the tech space even without a tech background. So definitely looking forward to that happening May 1st. I'd love to have you guys be a part, and continue to just follow our updates on our LinkedIn group page. And you all have a great evening. Thank you all so much.